Okay, so Colonial Marines kicks off the final part of our Alien vs Predator old timeline before the new established canon starts to steamroll us from Alien isolation. And we find that Colonial Marines takes place in 2180 AD as the USS Sephora responds to a distress call from the Sulaco 17 weeks after the Sulaco sent its distress call out. And we discover that the Sulaco is over LV-426 when they find it and is home to a company xenomorph farm. Both ships are destroyed during the infestation event that occurs when the ships dock with each other. On the surface of the planet, they find the ruins of a colony and they find the body of Hudson from Aliens, and then go to the derelict and find a base has been built around it and defeat a bishop android and get data on everything, it is claimed, and also kill an alien queen that tries to hijack its way off the planet on the Resolute. Now, we learn that the company hijacked the ship over Fury 161 and tracked it back to LV-426 in order to get the eggs. We see in Stasis Interrupted that Burke sent a message while on LV-426 which leads the Resolute to head out to this planet, as well as the research ship Legato, which is the one that sets up the derelict base and builds the hive on board itself, which ends up infecting the Sulaco when they locate it and go to investigate it. Now, one of the captive hosts here manages to destroy the Legato before they are chest bursted, but the xenomorphs escape onto the Sulaco and Ripley gets face-hugged while Hicks is awakened from his cryotube and replaced by the character Turk before the pod is launched to Fury 161, giving us the intro to Aliens and explaining that Ripley did indeed get infected by a hugger from LV-426. Now, Hicks would later fight with the company and make his way to Fury 161 during this event, and is captured by Bishop after watching Ripley die in the events of Alien 3. And while being tortured on LV-426, there is another xenomorph outbreak that occurs and Hicks attempts to escape but is recaptured, as is an alien queen. Now, Alien's infestation covers what appears to be the same events here, as we see the USS Sephora again launches 18 weeks after the Aliens incident and finds the Sulaco filled with xenomorphs and agents of the Union of Progressive Peoples. They then visit LV-426 and remove Union agents from there, and also proceed to the derelict where they encounter a jockey morph. They then head to a company base around Mars where they discover xenomorph experiments have been conducted and there is a gorilla xenomorph as well as a tank-like monster xenomorph are being created here before the ship then heads back to the Sulaco where both ships end up being destroyed. And given the similarities between this and Colonial Marines, the two options here seem to be that either this is showing us propaganda based on what happened, the Colonial Marines being the actual incident and it's covered up in infestation as propaganda, or more likely these events happen concurrently and can be explained away by the Progressive Peoples being a lie or a cover set up by the company, because it is later discovered that it is the company that are actually the ones perpetrating this. So they're using the Progressive Peoples as a shield. And also we see that there is the gorilla and tank xenomorphs being created in labs. Much like we see in Colonial Marines, there are other xenomorph variants which are being created or experimented on in the labs, such as the Crusher, the Spitters, the Boilers, and the Raven, which appears to be a sort of Orion style form of xenomorph. And then we also get the encounter with the jockey morph, which many have taken to believe does not actually exist in canon because we have seen evidence to the contrary, but it's entirely possible that it does actually still exist in canon, as this creature is just roaming around in the derelict because it could be another one of the company's experiments. They have added DNA from the space jockey and alien DNA and created this hybrid abomination. Now, Alien's extermination shows us that the Marines return to the base on LV-426 years after the events of Aliens, where we see a massive defence force from the company is in place, as well as more potential experimental creatures, such as these strange leeches which attack the player. And it can be determined that since this is years after the events of Aliens and the fact that we destroy the base around the derelict, it presumably takes place after the events of AVP 1999 as well, as there is already a base established there that we see. And so it seems that this company base has been here for a while, and potentially between the events of Colonial Marines and this game, there has been an ongoing conflict or dispute between the Marines and the company, which could very likely have been one of the alien wars mentioned in the Capcom game. As we see in this facility, we also have winged chestbursters and also flying xenomorphs as well, which are most likely experiments created by the company. As we see, there are also red xenomorphs and queens that can spit acid, which is a trait that we rarely see in the franchise, but seems to imply a connection between the times that we do. Now, at the end, the base is destroyed. However, we do see that the xenomorphs manage to survive by hitching a ride on the escape craft at the end, which leads us on to Alien Armageddon, which shows a xenomorph infestation taking place on Earth, where it is caused by a research vessel called Capella breaking up, and the xenomorphs are surviving within the debris and then spreading out across the planet. We also see the company have created another strain of xenomorphs to attack them, much like we saw in AVP Extinction with the A-series xenomorphs, as we have these new brown-coloured xenomorphs which are meant to combat the ones that are taking over. So it appears here that the company is attempting to play hero by creating their own version of the xenomorph to stop the infestation. And we do see that there are various forms of xeno experiments running loose here. We see giant chestbursters, which are about the size of an adult human, which imply that they burst from a much larger host, potentially, as many have believed, some form of large mammal such as a whale. And then we also see that there are what appear to be royal face huggers, which I've maintained haven't actually properly been established in canon yet. So the actual design of them doesn't necessarily mean they are royal huggers. They could just be amphibious face huggers, and these are also much larger than the standard face hugger, implying they take on bigger hosts. Now, we also find that there are flying face huggers as well as flying chestbursters, much like we saw in Extermination, and also hexapedal xenomorphs as well as hexapedal flying xenomorphs. And there's also, much like we saw in the Colonial Marines game so far, giant tank-like xenomorphs that launch spines from their body, implying a connection here from the company experiments that we saw in that game. There's also giant crested xenomorphs that are like berserkers that just rampage through the game and attack anything they find, and also a flying queen xenomorph, showing that multiple strains of xenomorph are developing full-blown hives at this point and fighting with each other. Now, the goal of the game appears to be to evac Earth as it is lost to the infection, and so it is impossible to tell where exactly the timeline this is meant to fall. However, there does appear to be a civil war between the Marines and the company already. So this either takes place after the events of Colonial Marines and the company attacks Earth with their xenomorphs, could take place after Extermination with the xenomorphs that hitch a ride on the Colonial Marines ships making their way back to Earth, or it can take place after AVP 1999 when the xenomorphs land on Earth from Gateway. But given that they come from the Capella ship, this one seems the least likely. So there have been multiple instances so far where a xenomorph has managed to get to Earth. Which leads us to our final game here, AVP Evolution, the final one of our Alien vs Predator games so far that managed to slip under the radar in the previous video. And we find here that the Super Predator and Jungle Predator feud is ongoing, and the supers are now exploiting the xenomorphs as an army in order to win the battle. Now, this apparently occurs before the events of Extinction, as that game featured clan wars where a new clan was being chosen as part of the Council of Elders, implying that another clan most likely was removed. It also appears to happen after the invention of the smart gun as we see it in the game, so it must happen after the events of the Thanatos encounter, which I've placed around the 2130s. So the super predators capture a queen in a temple, just like the one that they have on Earth in AVP. So the Predators obviously have multiple of these locations around the galaxy, and it seems here that the company have also discovered the temple and built up around it in order to get access, much like they do in AVP 2010. So there are eggs and huggers loaded onto crates here, meaning the company has access to them. And we find here that the drones, much like all the other xenomorphs which are connected with the predator race, have high heel-like feet like a queen and can spit acid. And even as part of the gameplay, grows a Praetorian tail with a blade rather than the barb, showing us that there are indeed different strains of xenomorph, and the most dominant of these appears to be the Nostromo strain, and the strain that the predators collected from an unknown source. Now, this temple also has xenomorph-like statues, just like the one in AVP 1999, implying it could actually be the same site. And we find here that after the game is won, the predators of the Jungle Clan have destroyed the xenomorphs and managed to save the clan from extinction by stopping the super predators and killing the queen. Now, this implies here that the company also may have started their hostility with the predators here, and so this gives us a nice window of when in the timeline it has to fit in order for the predators and the company's interactions to make sense, as well as the chain of events where the company has managed to try and acquire xenomorphs.